Maher al-Assad, the younger brother of former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, was a Syrian military commander and head of the elite 4th Armoured Division, notorious for his role in the Syrian regime's brutal crackdowns. From 2011 to 2024, he orchestrated massacres, chemical attacks, and widespread torture, implicated in the deaths of thousands during the Syrian Civil War, including the 2013 Douma and Eastern Ghouta chemical attacks that killed over 1,000. His Sharia militias terrorized civilians, and he profited from Syria's Captagon drug trade. In this documentary, we dissect Maher's atrocities through psychology and psychoanalysis, probing the mind behind his monstrous acts. Why shine a spotlight on Maher al-Assad, a name synonymous with terror in Syria? His crimes aren't just horrific. They're a psychological enigma, a chilling blend of power, rage, and sadism that demands analysis. Maher didn't just kill. He orchestrated suffering on an industrial scale, making him a prime subject for unraveling the psyche of a war criminal. Picture this. August 21st, 2013, Douma, Syria. Dawn breaks as sarin gas clouds choke entire families, their bodies convulsing, eyes bulging, foam spilling from mouths, 1,400 dead, including 426 children. Maher, commander of the 4th Division, is implicated in this chemical slaughter. In Homs, 2011, his forces rained barrel bombs, shredding civilians. One survivor told the New York Times, "They crushed us like insects." His Sharia squads, per the Washington Institute, raped, mutilated, and burned Sunni villages. These acts, chemical attacks, mass torture, sectarian killings, weren't mere warfare. They were Maher's signature, a sadistic ritual begging for psychological scrutiny. Let's rewind to the roots of this nightmare. Maher Hafez al-Assad, born December 8, 1967, in Damascus, grew up in the shadow of his father, Hafez al-Assad, Syria's iron-fisted president. The youngest of 6, Maher was raised in a family where power was everything. Psychology Today notes Hafez was emotionally absent, ruling Syria with brutality, while Maher's older brother Basil bullied him, fostering a hostile sibling dynamic. This, psychologists say, can spark reactive aggression, a need to prove oneself through violence. His mother, Anissa Maklauf, indulged her sons, creating a narcissistic entitlement. Maher believed he deserved control. Growing up Alawite in a Sunni-majority country, he internalized a siege mentality, seeing Sunnis as threats, per the Washington Institute. Maher's education was privileged but rigid. He attended the Academy of Freedom School, then studied business administration at Damascus University. Unlike his reserved brother Bashar, Maher was hot-tempered, described by Global Post as impulsive and volatile. This suggests emotional dysregulation, a trait linked to antisocial personality disorder, where empathy is absent and rules are meaningless. By his 20s, he was a military officer, climbing to command the 4th Armoured Division, Syria's most feared unit. His marriage to Manal al-Jadan, a Sunni, was strategic, tying him to Sunni elites, but the Washington Institute notes it didn't soften his sectarian hatred. Why murder? Psychopathy likely drove him, cold, remorseless, thriving on dominance. Psychoanalytically, his father's brutality and Basil's bullying created a repressed rage, unleashed on those he deemed inferior. Maher's crimes were a symphony of horror, orchestrated with chilling intent. He targeted civilians, mostly Sunnis, dissidents, or anyone defying the regime. The Syrian Network for Human Rights documents 202,000 civilian deaths by Assad forces, with Maher's division central to the slaughter. His chemical attacks, like Doumas, were calculated to maximize terror, per UN reports. Sadistic personality traits shown in his torture methods. In Branch 215, a Damascus detention center under his oversight, prisoners face electrical shocks, nail pulling, and being forced to carry corpses of fellow inmates. Omar al-Shogar, a survivor, told Carnegie, "They beat us with cables until we bled, laughing as we screamed." Maher's Sharia militias, led by cousins Fawaz and Munzer, were his enforcers, raping and burning Sunni villages. In 2012 Homs, his forces dropped barrel bombs, crude explosives packed with shrapnel, killing 11,087 civilians, including 1,821 children. Why civilians? Dehumanization let him see Sunnis as vermin, per ResearchGate. His narcissistic need for control targeted those who challenged his power, like protesters or rebels. His drug empire, trafficking Captagon via the 4th Division, funded this terror, netting billions. This hedonistic pursuit of wealth and power fueled his cruelty, making victims pawns in his empire. Maher's victims were Syria's most vulnerable, civilians, activists, even children. Amnesty International reports 96,321 enforced disappearances by Assad forces, many under Maher's command, with 15,102 tortured to death women and kids weren't spared. 5,742 women and 2,329 children vanished into his prisons. A survivor told The Guardian, "I saw a boy, maybe 14, whipped until his back was raw, then left to rot." Maher's sectarian bias targeted Sunnis, seen as rebels, but Alawites who dissented also face his wrath, per the Washington Institute. His psychopathic manipulation used fear to silence dissent. Public executions and mass graves were warnings. In 2011 Dara, where the uprising began, Maher's forces massacred protesters, shooting into crowds, per the New York Times. A witness recalled, "Blood ran like rivers. They didn't care who they hit." His chemical attacks, like Eastern Ghoutas, killed indiscriminately, with The Guardian reporting bodies piled in mosques, eyes frozen open. Why such brutality? Sadistic pleasure, per ResearchGate, drove him to prolong suffering, while projection, seeing his own weakness in victims, fueled his need to destroy. Let's dive into Maher's psyche, a cauldron of rage and control. Antisocial personality disorder fits him perfectly. No empathy, impulsivity, and a love for breaking norms. His sadistic personality disorder, but a crime library, reveled in pain. Carnegie quotes a defector, "Maher smiled when prisoners screamed." Narcissistic personality disorder fed his God complex. He saw himself as Syria's enforcer above morality. His volatility, noted by Global Post, points to borderline traits, where rage erupts when control slips. Psychoanalytically, Maher's childhood under Hafez's brutal shadow was a trauma bond, normalizing violence. Freud's displacement applies. He redirected his anger at his father's dominance and Bassel's cruelty onto civilians. Jung's shadow fits too, his loyal commander. Facade hid a monster who tortured for sport. His delusions of grandeur, per ResearchGate, made him believe he was destined to crush enemies. Why civilians? They symbolize chaos, threatening his control, while his sectarian paranoia cast Sunnis as existential threats. His drug trade, per Wikipedia, was a narcissistic extension, building wealth to inflate his ego while funding death. Imagine this. Homs, February 2012, a city under siege. Maher's 4th Division unleashes barrel bombs, metal drums packed with TNT, raining death. The New York Times describes streets littered with limbs, children buried in rubble. A mother told The Guardian, "I found my son's arm, nothing else." In Douma, August 2013, sarin gas creeps through homes. The Guardian reports victims claw at their throats, children's bodies stiffening in agony. A medic recalled, "The smell was like bleach. We couldn't save them." In Branch 215, prisoners endure falaka, foot whipping until bones shatter. Maher al-Assad told Carnegie, "They hung me by my wrists, shocked me until I passed out." In 2011 Aleppo, Maher Shabia burned Sunni shops, raping women in front of families. Per the Washington Institute, a defector said, "They laughed as they cut throats." These weren't random acts. Maher planned massacres to break resistance. Procedure. His torture rooms, filled with blood and screams, were his stage, reflecting sadistic predation. The precision of his chemical attacks, per UN reports, shows psychopathic calculation, maximizing fear and death. Maher's reign ended with the Assad regime's collapse. On December 8, 2024, as rebels stormed Damascus, Maher fled to Russia via Iraq, per Reuters. France issued an arrest warrant in November 2023 for his role in the 2013 chemical attacks, charging him with complicity in crimes against humanity. His fate remains uncertain. Hiding in Moscow, he's a fugitive, his empire of terror reduced to ashes. Syria's new government vows justice, per Amnesty International, But Maher's escape leaves victims waiting. Philosophically, Maher's life was a nihilistic spiral. He lived for power, not purpose. His cruelty a desperate bid to fill a void. From a Nietzschean lens, his will to power became sadistic domination, a twisted rebellion against his father's legacy and his own insecurities. Existentially, he was a man without meaning, his violence a scream into the abyss. Amnesty International notes post-Assad, reforms aimed to prevent such horrors, a faint hope amid his wreckage. Maher wasn't just a war criminal. He was a warning of what unchecked rage and power can unleash.